You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I am Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Zach Berry from the Ole Miss Spirit, the flagship, the Talka Champions Podcast Network. What am I missing, Zach?
You covered it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Zach is the Ole Miss football recruiting expert person that comes in and talks about all the time. And Shekai Mills Knight committed over the weekend. I got a nice little retweet from his commitment video from Lane Kiffin, which I appreciate that, Lane. Tell me a little bit about Shekai Mills Knight. What have the people at On3 said about him?
Yeah, I talked to both rankings and scouting folks at On3, Charles Power and Cody Belair. If you haven't checked it out already, you can see that full conversation at omspirit.com. And just a quick plug there. If you're not a member, go ahead and join. It's no better time right now because it's about to get a lot. So it'll be a lot of fun with college football just around the corner. But yeah, I talked with both of them. And then I talked with his head coach, Eric Kimmery. So I got a pretty good idea of who Shekai Mills Knight is. I've seen him with my own eyes. So from an amateur scout standpoint, there's a lot to like. He was never – when I saw him last year, he was probably playing around 85%. He had a really, really bad high ankle sprain last year, so he missed some time, but still managed over 1,200 all-purpose and was a big part of Baylor getting to that state championship game a year ago. And look, when I talked with his head coach, I mean, he lit up about him just off the field and as well, just said he's just a magnetic personality. He's a great kid. He called him a culture builder, which I've never heard that term, but just, he's from Canada. He was interested in the Baylor school program. He applied, he came and visited, loved it. His mom was all on board. And the head coach, Eric Kimmery, said that it didn't take very long for him and the rest of the staff to be on board. So, kind of an all around, cliche, but just kind of like an all-American dude. Really good kid and someone that is just his best football is in front of him. I think that there is kind of a narrative that he hasn't played a lot of football, but he played football his whole life growing up in Canada. So Canadian football, a little different, but still has played a lot. And then playing at Baylor school, if you're not familiar with high school football in Tennessee, that Division II AAA level is probably right there neck and neck with 6A in the state. So it's right there with the highest classification. So he's going to play somewhat of a national schedule this year. They're going to play, they're going to open against Rabun Gap from Georgia on ESPN. And then they'll play Coconut Creek from Florida. They'll play St. Pius from Missouri. They'll play another St. Pius from Georgia. They'll kind of play everybody, and then they'll play Macaulay, who's in Chattanooga right down the road from them, won state last year, a really good program. So he's going to be battle-tested by the time he gets to college. But, I mean, a lot of upside, already physically looks the part. Probably pushing 220, 225 right now. And his coach told me that, he was like, man, I asked him for a comp and he was like, well, it's kind of hard to do. And you can kind of get yourself in trouble when you do things like that. But he threw out two names that are pretty damn good. He said Najee Harris and Leonard Fournette. So yeah, I mean, looking at him, the player, I think you're getting someone who is very, very physical between the tackles, has home run speed. He's not going to be a blazing 4.3, low 4.4, but he's going to be in the mid to high 4.4s, 4.5. At 220 pounds, it's pretty impressive. But yeah, I mean, his coach called him a jewel of a human being and a running back. And then I know the guys at On Three said that they're just bullish on his translatable skills. So for those that aren't familiar with how On Three evaluates, they look at the player translating to the NFL. It's not let's evaluate the player in high school right now, or let's look at what they could be in college. It's to the highest level. So they're looking at evaluating to the NFL, and both Charles Power and Cody Belair were really, really excited. Size, frame, speed, he's got all that. Really good out of the backfield catching the football. So I know Ole Miss fans were excited, but if you're not familiar with Shekai Mills Knight, or you don't know maybe how excited you should be, with Najee Harris and Leonard Fournette thrown around, you should be pretty excited.
Yeah, honestly, I had Brian Smith, the Locked On recruiting expert, that's been on the program several times, and his comp for Shekai Mills Knight was Quinshon Judkins.
Okay, yeah, I think he's a little bit bigger already. Quinshon was, by the time he left Ole Miss, and now he's at Ohio State, he's pretty rocked up now. But Shekai Mills Knight looks like a college running back right now. I talked with him at Juice Fest. He was standing around. Look, there's no real like not weird way to say it, but they're out there. It's hot. He doesn't have a shirt on. He looks like a 22-year-old. Like he's huge. I don't remember guys looking like that when I played in high school. And he's going to be a senior. Maybe on your way out of high school, there's a couple dudes that look like that. But I mean, just a really well put together prospect. I mean, he is very, very big. He's physical. And it's no frills. I mean, there's no baby fat on there. I mean, he is a guy that hits the weight room hard. And I think that if he can continue to improve out of the backfield, catching the football, he's already pretty good at it. But I think at Ole Miss, you're going to be asked to do that a lot. Here's one thing that was pretty eye-opening to me. His head coach said he's already very good at pass pro. He said he's a willing blocker. He's going to stick his nose in there. A lot of kids either aren't asked to do a lot of that in high school or don't really like to do it. But he kind of takes pride in being able to block. So, yeah, I mean, Quinshon Judkins is a hell of a comp too, because look, Ole Miss fans know. I mean, he was a dude when he was at Ole Miss, and he's probably going to be a dude for the Buckeyes. But yeah, I think he's bigger than Quinshon. So the Najee Harris comp is I've heard that one before. Leonard Fournette, that's high praise. I would say Fournette's bigger than Shekai, but hey, I mean, he's probably still not done growing. Yeah,
Leonard Fournette. I remember when Leonard Fournette was like in 8th grade. That's whenever the buzz started in the recruiting services. I was at Rivals at that point, and it's like, hey, this guy's going to be legit. And I remember following him all the way up until Playoff Lenny became a thing as well. Now, that wasn't the only real story in recruiting right now. Kelvin Bolden is getting cryptic with his tweeting, and I'm not 100% sure what it was. I do not think it is about AK Deer. I think AK Deer is going to end up committing to Alabama. But
yeah,
it feels at least a little bit weird and not necessarily about Shekai Mills Knight.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of subliminal messaging with staffs this day and age. People, we talked about it in our message board the other day, what languages you speak. And, I was like, well, I still pretty solid in Spanish from high school and college. And then, I know some vocab words in German and French, but I'm pretty fluent in recruiting. Yeah, the tweets, a lot of times it's nothing. A lot of times they're just promoting, what the video team's doing. They're just trying to get people hyped for the season. The coaches are excited. They're just, having fun. But yeah, there's a lot of read between the lines type stuff with these tweets. Yeah, I think a lot of it, the buildup last week was referring to Shekai Mills Knight. There are certain tweets that mean a commitment is coming. But yeah, I think a lot of the messaging has been for the in-state kids. I think that there's no, I mean, it's not a secret. Ole Miss wants Deuce Knight, Ole Miss wants A.K. Deer, and Ole Miss wants Caleb Cunningham. Now, there's several other dudes in the state that Ole Miss would like to get, but those are the big three, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the top three dudes. Yeah, we're recording this on Monday. A.K. Deer is going to commit to Alabama on Tuesday, but it's not over. He's gonna continue to hear everybody out. He's gonna continue to listen to Ole Miss. He's gonna continue. I don't think there's anyone else in the picture, to be honest. I was kind of surprised that Mississippi State was included in this decision. I haven't heard anything about Mississippi State or A.K. Deer probably in the last 3 years. It's been pretty much all Alabama and Ole Miss. And look, to AK's credit, he's been very honest about it. He's said, hey, I love Ole Miss. I love Lane Kiffin, everything about that staff. They've been good to me. But he's also, he grew up liking Alabama. He grew up in the golden age of Nick Saban and that program being the best in the country. So, he kind of cheered for Alabama. And, Quitman's, close to Meridian, and Meridian is basically, an Alabama satellite campus at this point. A lot of Alabama fans live in Meridian. It's right there. But I think that one's far from over. I know that's, cliche, and maybe people say, you're just saying that because you're an Ole Miss guy that covers Ole Miss. Well, that's what everybody's saying. I've talked to Alabama guys that cover recruiting. They say the same thing. They know Ole Miss is going to continue to come after him. But yeah, I think the Deuce Knight thing is very interesting because he all the buzz was about him decommitting and eventually flipping to Auburn a couple of weeks ago. It never happened. I think he's going to take it into his senior season and kind of weigh his options. There's no doubt he likes Notre Dame. I think his parents really like Notre Dame. They are well aware of what a degree from that university comes with, the networking and all of that. And then I think they're also, they know how much playing inside the state of Mississippi means to him. And he has a really good relationship with Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. and all of that. So, yeah. And then, finally, Caleb Cunningham, the kid has fun. He enjoys the recruiting process. And, look, I probably would too if I was him. But, yeah, my conversations with Caleb, it was pretty evident that he is very interested in Ole Miss. He's committed to Alabama. He's going to say all the right things on social media. When A.K. Deer commits, he's going to be all over Twitter and Instagram buzzing about the commitment. And he's excited for his friend. But Ole Miss is going to be in that one until signing day. I can guarantee you that.
And beyond that, probably. Alabama, by the way, who Ole Miss is competing with, and a lot of this, all of my contacts that I've built up, I started working at Rivals probably in 2007. So I've known a lot of these guys and a lot of coaches around the Southeast for a very long time. And I talked to one and something started come up, and I've heard from two different sources on this. Nick Saban was extremely locked down and regimented in what he did. And it was set up to where if a coach wanted to come in and bring his kid to campus or something like that, Alabama bent over backwards. They closed down practice for everybody else. They bent over backwards to help the high school coaches and the recruits. And that was one of Nick Saban's secret sauce. This new staff is not doing that. They're almost doing the opposite, to where the boosters now have access to the practice field, and it's harder for college or high school coaches to get their players onto campus. And it's starting to tick some people off in that state. As you can imagine, that lets me know that if this thing goes sideways in year one, it has a chance to really affect things recruiting wise.
I'll say this. I would be incredibly shocked if it went sideways. Year one, I'm assuming you mean on the field results.
Yeah, I'm talking 3 losses. That's going sideways for Alabama. 3 losses.
I'd have to pull up the schedule and run through it, but I don't think that. I mean, maybe 10-2, and then you get to the playoff and lose a third. But I mean, I think Kalen DeBoer is really, really damn good at what he does, and I think Jalen Milroe is a good fit for him. And I think the nucleus that's already there from the Nick Saban tenure is going to really help him bridge to do what he likes to do. And yeah, I'm a huge DeBoer guy. I'm a huge fan, and he's won everywhere he's been. So and I've heard people say, like, well, everybody's disrespecting the Tide this offseason. Like, no, they're preseason top 10. No one's disrespecting them. Like, they lost a lot, and they got a new staff, and it's going to be a little different. But man, I think they're going to be just fine.
They're going to be fine. But if they go 9-3, let's say they lose to Oklahoma, Missouri, and Georgia, that's possible. I mean, even Kalen DeBoer in his first year that would be it would be something that would be very fathomable. Missouri's supposed to be very good. Oklahoma always has the talent to jump up and get you. You lose 3 games, you end up in the Citrus Bowl. At that point, it's going to be a lot harder to recruit. You're not going to be able to get the, quote, Saban discount and all of that. And a lot of that reputation is not going to follow you into the future, so to speak.
All right. So for the sake of this exercise, I pulled it up. Let's run through it real quick. I think Western Kentucky, South Florida, Wisconsin wins. Georgia, for the sake of this, we're going to say it's a loss. Now, that's going to probably be Georgia's biggest game of the year. All due respect to Ole Miss.
Texas game. They play Texas on the road too.
That's at the end of September. It's still kind of early. That's one Kirby Smart's going to really want to get and really want to make a statement. Okay. Vanderbilt win. South Carolina win. Tennessee, I think Alabama wins that game. I think Tennessee's a year or 2 away. I think it's the cart before the horse.
You live in Nashville like I've lived in Nashville. Neyland can be a very difficult place at night whenever they're ginned up. And they're going to be ginned up for that game.
I mean, the Matt Corral game, that's the loudest and most rowdy environment in any sport I've ever been in. I mean, it's loud. But I still think Nico is still young.
He's still young.
I think he's going to be good, but it's asking a lot year one as a starter. Same thing with Oklahoma. We'll get to them. I think Alabama beats Tennessee. I'm very intrigued with all the Missouri hype. I think Brady Cook is a good quarterback. Luther Burden's probably one of the better players in the country, but lost a ton on defense. You lose your defensive coordinator.
You hire Corey Batoon.
I mean, I think his name is escaping me, but that running back, Cody Schrader. Cody dude was a stud. You're having to replace him, and that's in Tuscaloosa. I don't know if Missouri's ready for that yet. So right now, we've got them at just 1 loss. LSU is going to tell a lot about this Alabama team and this LSU team because in November, I'm selling the LSU stock right now. I don't get all the hype. And by saying I sell the stock, I'm not saying I think they're going to be terrible. I mean, you're replacing the guy that won the Heisman, 2 first-round NFL picks.
And all of your rushing yards.
Yeah. I mean, Jaden Daniels ran for over 1,000, and Logan Diggs plays at Ole Miss now. And, oh, by the way, did 0 to fix the defense. I mean, you made a coaching change at the coordinator spot, but and coaching matters. It does. But I don't know. And even then, if they lose the LSU game, they win out after that. It's still 10-2. I mean, with the 12-team playoff, sure, people are going to be mad in Tuscaloosa, but that's still fine.
Auburn is not a guarantee. I don't care if it's in Tuscaloosa or not. We've seen Hugh Freeze pull that game out, and it gets weird.
Yeah.
New Mexico State. I am never going to chalk up the Auburn-Alabama game as long as Hugh Freeze is at Auburn. And this isn't because Hugh Freeze is some kind of a magic man. He just has a spell to where he shows up in those Alabama games.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing Peyton Thorne goes into Bryant-Denny and wins a game.
Yeah.
I also can't get the New Mexico State game out of my mind.
Yes.
So
Yeah. That was that whole thing. You remember this past week, Hugh Freeze is like, I should have beaten Nick Saban 4 times. That whole thing is like, yeah, you should have lost to Vanderbilt 4 times too.
yeah, I mean, I should eat better, but I don't know. I mean, I think Alabama, again, a 10-2 Alabama team, post Saban, there are going to be morons that are going to be screaming at their TVs, but no, that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's a decently hard schedule, and I don't know. I just think DeBoer he's going to figure it out. They've got, in my opinion, one. I'm not going to say guaranteed because nothing's guaranteed, but I mean, Georgia's probably a loss. Outside of that, I mean, I think Bama's going to be favored in every other game.
Yeah, we'll see how it looks. I'm just saying, if things get sideways on him and they end up 9-3 and in the Citrus Bowl, it's going to be a difficult recruiting job for him in the future, and the fan base is going to be. You were going to think they went 6-6.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and Ray Perkins is a thing. I mean, until I see Kalen DeBoer come out there, Ray Perkins had a resume too when he replaced Bear Bryant. Alabama is a great job. Every coach there has won 10 games. Even Mike Dubose won 10 games in a season, but it's not a guaranteed win.
Yeah.
So
I think this is a great year one for him with what he has already.
Yeah.
Like having Jalen Milroe is going to really help get him settled in.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we're going to hit the week 0 lines with Zach a little bit and talk about this first weekend of college football. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel over here at Locked On, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Maybe you want to bet on Ole Miss and they're over-under at 9.5 wins this season, or Jackson Dart at plus 1,500 to win the Heisman Trophy. Now is your chance to do that. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On College Sports. It is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel about college sports, programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On College Sports brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, all streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, download the Zeam app, ZEAM. It is where the Locked On streams are, all 6 of them, and they also have a nice little program guide as well, so you can see what's coming up in the near future. All right, Zach, let's turn our attention a little bit to week 0 before we get out of here. And you look at these games this weekend. Obviously, the headliner is Florida State versus Georgia Tech. And I talked with Brian Smith, who has a lot of contacts at Florida State. and really inside the state of Florida. He's saying he thinks that Florida State's going to absolutely roll over Georgia Tech in this game. But I think Georgia Tech has a chance to be sneaky good.
I do too. I like what they've got going on down there on the flats. Haynes King was pretty solid a year ago, and I think that program's only going to get better. They're kind of building a whole mentality, a whole kind of culture down there. I think Brent Key's done a good job. If we're looking at this game from a betting standpoint, it's in Dublin, Ireland. There's going to be some jet lag. It's going to be different. The teams may or may not get out and have some Guinness before the game. But I think if I was putting real American dollars on this game, I would take the under. It started at 56.5. It's down to 55.5, and it might continue to drop. It may be different right now. But yeah, I think Florida State wins a tight one. I know that it's such a volatile topic to talk about DJ Uiagalelei. I thought what he had at Oregon State was a perfect fit for him. I thought Jonathan Smith's offense was perfect. I thought it was good for him just as a player. It kind of put him in a pro system where he could kind of showcase, hey, this is what I would potentially look like in the NFL. So I'm very intrigued to see what he looks like with Mike Norvell's offense. We all know what happened to Florida State last year. They were damn good. They get left out of the playoff, yada, yada. I think this one will be closer than the experts think, as our man Lee Corso always says. But, yeah, I would take the under. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's an opener, week 0, across the pond in Ireland. I think it'll be kind of sloppy. But, look, hey, if Florida State blew the doors off of them, I wouldn't be shocked either. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think Georgia Tech's going to be solid this year. But, yeah, I'd take the under.
Yeah, no Keon Coleman, no Johnny Wilson. And that's probably a big thing that people need to remember as well. So also, this is a fun game to me. Montana State is a 9.5-point favorite at New Mexico. That's an FCS program, 10-point favorites against a FBS program on the road. Am I seeing that correct, man?
It's weird. Non-FBS team traveling to face the Lobos for the second game on Saturday. It is kind of odd. The Bobcats are a sizable favorite right now. And it went from at one point in certain books, it went from 9.5 to 10. The game total is around 53.5, 54. Look, the Lobos were bad last year, 4-8, lost 4 of their last 5. And then Montana State, on the other hand, 8-4, played in the Big Sky, which is a fun conference. If you're a true sicko, you want to watch some fun football. The Big Sky is a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, Montana State won all 8 games last year by at least 12 points or more. So they left little doubt when they were put one in the W column. If it's 9.5, I'm laying them. If it gets north of 12, 13, I'd maybe back off. But yeah, if it's 9.5 or 10, I'm laying the points.
And we have SMU at Nevada, 27.5-point favorites for the Mustangs. Now, Zach, who would have thought that in this age of NIL and paying college football players, SMU would be good?
Look, if you don't know about SMU, I mean, it's a very, very bougie university. It gets compared to Ole Miss a lot. Like a lot of Dallas kids go to Ole Miss, and there's probably a lot of similarities there with the student body a little bit. But yeah, big jump up for SMU. I know the Ponies are pretty excited about being in the ACC. It's pretty cool for that program to come all the way up to the ACC in a Power 4 conference. But yeah, I like what Lashley's got over there. 27.5 is a lot. And look, Nevada is terrible. 2-10 a year ago. And SMU, started 9-0, went 9-0 to finish out the year. had a ton of momentum. I know everybody's excited, not only for the move to the ACC, but Lashley's got a good thing going. They've got, like you mentioned, the NIL situation is really good. There's a lot of money at that school. They've got the collective in a good spot. Lashley's, his offense is going to be good. He's going to put up points. I would probably take the over here. I think it's at 56.5, 57. That 27.5 number is quite a bit, but that's kind of like where we are, where is the over the play, or do you take the 27.5? Because it could be a 31-3 type game. Or excuse me, like a 34-3, where you cover, but then you don't hit the over. But I don't know. It's week 0. I to be honest, I'll admit I don't know terribly a lot about SMU's defense. So maybe they're okay, but maybe they're not. Maybe the Wolfpack put up some points. But yeah, if this was a 49-14 game, I wouldn't be shocked. And you got a good chance of hitting the over. But yeah, SMU's probably going to win big.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Zach Berry from Ole Miss Spirit, Talk of Champions, the flagship, all of that. You can catch his stuff. Zach, what do you got going on this week, bud?
Yeah, we kind of started our it's a good segue here. We were talking lines, talking gambling. We have our kind of our season preview episode on our gambling show that we do. It's called Hit That Line. So the Legal Gambling Council is back. We're going to be talking week 0 later this week. We'll have a show, and then we'll get into our regularly scheduled programming with week 1 and week 2 when everything gets rolling. We have a good time. We pick games. We pick winners. Last year, we had quite the campaign. We went 91-72-1 last year against the spread. So with the schedule permitting, if we can each get 3 locks, it's me and 3 other guys on the show. So we give you 12 games to pick through. So you can, do a 12-leg parlay if you want, or you can kind of pick and choose and create your own adventure there. And then, as always, the flagship, we'll have a recruiting show. We usually do 2 a week. And then my man Ben Garrett he's brought the Talk of Champions show back. He will talk more focused on actual football, like Ole Miss fall camp, looking into the season, whereas my show is typically angled more towards recruiting. So we'll have that. And, of course, omspirit.com will have full coverage of fall camp. We'll have full coverage of pretty much anything that pertains to recruiting. So we got a lot going on. It's week 0. We'll have high school football this week as well. So we'll have a full breakdown of that every Sunday or Monday, depending on how readily available statistics are for high school games. But I do a nice little breakdown for you of all the commits and targets and kind of performances that happened under the lights on Friday. So, yeah, we have a lot of fun. Like I said at the top of the show, if you're not a member, come join us. We have a good time.
Zach Berry, Ole Miss Spirit, joining us to talk about, Shekai Mills Knight, who committed this over the weekend. So, Zach, thank you very much for stopping by. We'll talk to you again, bud.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.